there tends to be arguments around religion of when you say ego involved, like people start making it like, oh, well, because you don't do these things, like my understanding of maybe say Christianity is this and yours is this. And if you don't abide by this, are you really following Jesus or like being true to your source or your God or whatever you want to call it? And so like this is definitely an interesting topic.
Welcome to the Rational Growth Experience, where every week we talk about how concepts from personal growth and spirituality come together in our experience of our everyday lives.
All right, let's do it.
Cool. All right, so I had no idea what we're talking about.
So I think last week we were talking about a little bit, I guess, more about my story or like that jumping off point of like getting into personal development. But and then we were going to talk about the foundation series and what is that. And so I guess give context. I think this one we should talk a little bit about why is any of this valuable, and like why is personal development valuable? How is it valuable? What's the point? So
Okay.
just striking the nail directly on the head in this one. So
Okay.
I'll kind of start. So perfect example, literally just right now before this podcast started, I get on and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I just had a long day. I don't want to do this. Like, even though it's something I enjoy doing, I'm like, dude, that was just how my day was. I just felt like, and then I was like, nope, we're doing this. Let's just give myself a minute. So maybe you can even cut to this and me just fucking literally sitting in silence with my eyes closed. And you can, I'm sure
I recorded part of it.
Oh yeah, you recorded part of it. So
Yeah.
Hell, now like that things are different, and it
Yeah.
was like what I maybe closed my eyes for like 2 or 3 minutes.
It's energy. It's all about energy.
So
about energy.
So the why is this important is for, and this is just one practical application, is when you take a lot of this information that we're going to be covering and then you implement it, you'll notice that you'll catch yourself when you're off. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling whatever you're feeling, you'll notice. And then what you'll do is you'll say, oh, I don't want to feel that. And then you'll maybe do what I do, which is just close my eyes and take a couple of minutes to just breathe. Stop telling the stories about whatever and kind of like let it just flow out of me. Remind myself that's okay. Remind myself that's perfectly okay what I'm feeling, and then just change it. And then you come out of it a couple minutes later. Now, imagine if you could do that skill, like, and just if you could do that and it only takes you 2 minutes. Like, how valuable would that be? Like, let's say you're in a real estate transaction. Things are getting spicy back and forth with a listing agent because they don't want to give your clients or something you're asking for. And things are getting heated. They're getting pissed. You're getting pissed. And then you just stop. You take 2 minutes. You say, I'll call you back or whatever. And then if you're on the phone or text, if it's text, even easier, you can just close your eyes, take a couple of minutes, reassess, and then bring yourself back. And by that, I mean, like, when you bring yourself back, you're more objective. You're no longer running and replying and responding to things around you through your emotions. So the value, like, imagine even take that another step further, say like relationships with friends. instead of playing victim, say you have an argument with a friend and you know you're right, they're right, whatever, it's just some miscommunication, and you're going back and forth and you're trying to get them to understand your way, and then eventually you just kind of stop because you realize, oh, I'm not even like, this isn't even productive. Like, we're just getting mad at each other. But you take a couple minutes to stop, you become more objective. When you do that, you've settled yourself down, which is the most important part. When you settle yourself down, you're no longer judging, you're no longer reacting out of your emotions, you're just calm and you're in the moment. And so when you do that, you're able to be there for that person and maybe actually listen to what they're saying and, find that middle ground. Then being more objective, you're able to build the middle ground for you to come together on rather than me versus you. So,
Exactly.
I mean, those are just a couple examples. And so the why is like, I don't know, you can start piecing that together for your own life. Like for even me today, I was like, like that was the one word I'd use to describe my day. I was just like, and just taking that literally maybe 3 minutes. That's all it took. All it took me 3 minutes to just sit, close my eyes, complete silence, let it flow out, and then come back. And now I'm more energetic, more blah, 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 more able to just talk about these scenes and more into it and more excited rather than dragging my ass, like kind of like beating myself
Exactly.
up, yada, 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 telling myself these stories. So I don't know. I think I just
Like,
wanted to hit a little bit on that, and I think it'll become more and more apparent as we talk about these things, like how you could apply some of this information and how it's valuable to you. Because ultimately, I could tell you all the positive things that I experienced through all of this, benefits it's had on me and how it's impacted like my personal, professional lives. But at the end of the day, if you don't experience it, you probably think I'm full of shit. So all we're gonna
yeah.
do here is we're just gonna share all the information that we have of
Well,
what
I've
are
been
things we
recording,
learned. Oh, okay, perfect. Something
and I think it was
something
good. It's good.
perfect. So then we're just gonna share the information that it's allowed us to get really quick at it. Because obviously at first,
Yeah.
like there's a little bit of a struggle, but like how valuable would it be to you if you knew that if you just stopped, closed your eyes, and sat in silence for 2 minutes, that you could change your entire mood, energy, and feeling towards the day? Man, you could tackle anything if you could do that. So just imagine how valuable
Yeah.
that would be. So
Yeah.
getting
Well, I can
into
honestly tell. Sorry to cut you off, but
you're
something
good.
just sparked, and this was when you were talking about that real estate transaction. Well, I do have this real estate transaction that just went complete, shit sideways. The worst of the worst, and I wish I would have known this type of practical application that I could have done during those situations, because it would have honestly more than less save those deals, truthfully. Because when you're in one of those real estate transactions, appraisal comes under of what you had originally offered. It's a complete shit show. Earnest money is on the line. The worst of the worst that you can think of, and you're the face of the transaction. You know what they're gonna do? Point the finger at you. Point the finger at you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if I would have known on like, okay, relax, just relax. It's not the end of the world, you know, and would have attacked it like that instead of a state of anxiousness and anxiety. It would have completely shifted that conversation with the listing agent from the get-go. Now, of course, it is what it is. You live and you learn, but with the practicality, like what Dylan is saying, like, yeah, it's super, super valuable learning how to meditate. Now, of course, I still don't think that I'm at the point where I would like to be. I'm still at a novice level, still understanding on how to really center myself with my energies and knowing how to live off of that state. Because at the end of the day, we just want to live off of higher vibrations. So me and Dylan just are laughing, and like 2 minutes later, I wish I would record this because energies were fucking low. I'm not shitting you. Energy was
They
low. I could already
were
tell
low,
from this
dude.
dude.
I knew they were.
Energy was super low, and I was like, oh shit, okay. We're about to record. He asked me like, "Are we gonna be video recording?" I'm like, "Yes, we're gonna have to video record because we can't stop. It's gonna continue." You know, um, but yeah, no, that's just what I kind of wanted to chime in, and I know you were kind of wanting to talk about other things too, but the practicality and being able to apply that in the now is super fucking valuable. Super valuable.
Yeah, so I think something I want to share, elaborate more off of that is like what did a video about this either. I haven't shared it, but like quick little 5-minute video talking a little bit more about this and what I do. But I think and then we'll start transitioning into the foundation series of all this,
Yeah.
of like getting into a little bit of the framework we come from. But in terms of a practical tool, that's a perfect one. And so at least for me, what I do is I'm aware that I'm feeling uncomfort, or I'm feeling stress, or I'm feeling anxiety, or I'm feeling sad or upset or mad or whatever it is, whatever emotion, I can feel it. And then I have an immediate adverse reaction of, oh, I don't want to feel this. Oh, I'm doing that again. Fuck, and then I start beating myself up. And then I have the third reaction, which is like, hold on. It's okay to have these feelings. Like, obviously they're here. Like, something's up. I'm still human at the end of the day. Like, let me just
Not the
let
end
this
of the
be what
world.
it is. And then when I do that, at least for me, that's kind of what I have to do, because I know I have a tendency to want to just like dominate and like control my like way I think and feel in my body. I mean, if there's anything I've learned about myself recently, is that I got really good at controlling like me and like the thoughts, the feelings, like what I looked like, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have to kind of make sure I'm not coming at it from that. And that's why for me, it's really important that I'm like, no, it's okay to feel what I'm feeling. Like, I'm perfectly normal emotions. Anyone other rational person has these sort of emotions, or irrational, people still have emotions. And,
Right.
and so I remind myself of that. And then I think that's almost like it gives I like to kind of differentiate my mind and body. Like, it gives my like body kind of like a breather, like, oh yeah, that's right. It's okay. And then I'm no longer in that sort of survivalistic state of like panic, like throw up the defenses, et cetera, et cetera. And so I take that moment, say it's okay, whatever I'm feeling, it's totally okay. And it sounds kind of weird just telling myself that. And then I'm like, I then I say like, I am perfectly perfect how I am. I am one with God. I'm here in the moment. Like, I am the light, or like, I am like, my purpose here is to just like let my light shine through, or whatever. And it sounds really stupid. And the first time I heard it, it really bothered me. I didn't really like it, but I did it anyways, because I was like, I want to change this. And now it's grown on me, and I use it because it's kind of like one of those like, oh yeah, like big spirituality kind of stuff. And we'll get into like what all that means, even like being one with God, in the light, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what I say. And I sit there and I just remind myself of that, and with my eyes closed and just in silence. Once I told myself it's okay, I remind myself of that. And normally by that point, I can start feeling like, I kind of feel like a lot of energy in my heart will just kind of like, I'll feel it. Like, for me, I tend to feel a lot of energy in my heart. I just feel like it's kind of like a tingling sensation almost. And when I start feeling that, then I'm like, cool, I'm good. And then that's all it takes. And then I'll open my eyes and go back to what I'm doing. And then it's
Yeah.
really funny. Like, I did that yesterday. I did it yesterday. I was shopping, was kind of like frustrated in my head. I was super mad yesterday about something, and it was really bugging me. And I was like, I don't want to be mad at this anymore. I'm so done with this, blah, 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 like judging myself. And then I was like, wait, no, like, it's okay. Like, this is part of, the process. Like, it's totally just a normal human emotion, totally fine. And then I was like, I'm one with God. I'm here in the moment. It, like, this isn't real. This is just like something that's coming up. It doesn't define who I am. And then I've just, I like felt like, I felt like this, like, kind of like a like weight off my shoulders. And then
Well,
I just felt like,
let me cut you off.
God.
Sorry to cut you off. So this is a powerful topic, I want to say. Um, Explain a little bit more, or elaborate a little bit more. What does that mean? Like, what does that sensation feel like? What does it do to you? I know that you're kind of getting into that, but like, um, for a novice, for instance, someone that doesn't really understand or comprehend, because if you're talking to yourself, it sounds crazy, like it sounds like we're complete hippies. So,
Okay. Yeah, I
you
guess I
know,
shouldn't say, like, I'm not saying this out loud. This is like an inner conversation.
right?
So I'm literally just.
Yeah, yeah,
So you're saying, like, what is that? Like, what is that?
yeah.
Like, why? I
Just
guess
dive deep into
frame
it.
your question.
Yeah. So I guess what we're
Um,
trying to figure out is, yeah, no, like, I mean, what does that mean? What does that entail? What does that cause, or how does that, for someone who is new, telling yourself the I am affirmations, or yourself, I am powerful, I am king, I am, what those praises, and having that sense of positivity, what does that cause or do? Like that cause and effect, I guess is what I'm
yeah,
trying to ask.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So to make it clear, like, it is an affirmation, but it isn't.
Hmm.
So because I guess, like, talking a little bit about affirmations, like, to me, I think affirmations are stupid because it's just words that you're saying, like, I am this, I am love, I am light, which I think there is a lot of power in words. I 100% agree. But if your intention behind it isn't there, you can say it a million times and it won't mean jack shit. So it's like, I used to hate affirmations because I was like, I'm telling myself, I wrote down in my book, in my little binder, in my notepad every day, I am this, I am love, I am light, I am rich, I am abundant, I am whole, I am happy, I am like, I did that. Like, I could probably find the book and flip through the pages to show you. Like, I did that and it didn't
Yeah.
help. And so, to give context, I think, and that's not to deter anyone that's currently doing it. I'm just saying, like, what is your intention behind it? It's like,
Hmm.
the power in the affirmation comes when you're truly believing that. Because it's like, I can
Right.
say I am, like, rich or whatever, but if I don't believe it, I'm gonna feel the non-belief versus what it's supposed to do, which is feel the feeling. So
Hmm.
when I take this moment, like when I'm closing my eyes and I'm pausing, what I'm really doing is I'm allowing whatever those negative emotions, and I'm just going to keep coming back to emotions. It's all feeling. It's all an emotion.
Right.
I'm going to let those negative emotions be there, and then I'm going to say, "Oh, that's totally okay, but I don't want to feel that anymore." And so I'll switch, and then I'll start just saying, I am love, I am light, whatever, and I'll start feeling that. And that's where I'm, like, feeling that. And so when I'm feeling it, like I said, sometimes I'll feel like a little tingly sensation in my chest, or like my body will feel tingly. And then I guess the easiest way I can relate it to, or easiest thing I can relate it to is, you know, when, like, when you accomplish something like that you've been working super hard at, or like maybe when you're in the gym and you just hit a PR, or
Hmm.
like when you like maybe when you just had sex or something with someone you love and you have this,
Right.
like, super euphoric feeling going through you of, like, holy cow, that was amazing,
Right.
that's what it feels like. That's what I could say it feels like, is I sit there and no longer feel the negative, and I don't even want to say negative or emotion, but until I don't feel that anymore, and then I feel like just good. And I can tell there's a shift that kind of happens, either, or you'll be aware of your self-talk that's just kind of going back and forth. It's like, no, I'm good. And then you feel that. And that's how I know. Because I'm feeling some tingliness. I'm feeling pretty good. And then I'll be, I don't know, it's like, it's almost like a swagger. So it's like you kind of just, like, get this sudden good. And then you just ride that and you use that to feel whatever you're doing. Does
Hmm.
that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does, and I think that just it gains that sense of clarity. You know, now kind of talking about the foundational topics. What
But
is an importance? Whoa,
definitely lag.
yeah, give me one sec. Let me pause it real quick. So, okay, sorry, we had some
Yeah. So
technical
does that kind of
difficulties.
answer your question?
Yeah, no, it definitely does, and it gains that sense of clarity. With regards to what you're talking about. in me, I guess with I am affirmations, I do believe in them. I do believe that they are very powerful, because just even telling myself like, yeah, I'm powerful, I'm king, I am confident, it just gives me that sense of sensation with regards to those types of phrases. For me at least, because I like what you're saying, I do feel that. Now, what other foundational
Yeah.
topics do you think that, what the fuck, resume? All right.
All
Got a
right.
little technology. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no
so
kidding, right? But that's okay.
no, so yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
so while we were recouping on the recording, we were just talking about like what is the taking the little bit of the practical information. So we just gave you a little nugget, little thing you can snag and use anytime you're feeling sad or upset or whatever. But like where does that come from? What do we mean when we're saying one with God? Or like what do we mean when we're saying we're the light? Or like what do we mean? What is meditation? Like what is all of that? And so I think we want to jump into a little bit about like what the foundation is. Like what is the foundation? And we
Hmm.
call it, I'm calling it, or we're calling it, the foundation series, because um it's really the core principles that we have learned over the years, or at least I've learned, and now I'm sharing, and I've been sharing with Eric for a while now. And so where we're coming at all of this from, and where we're coming at, and when I say all of this, I mean business, where we're coming at relationships from, where we're coming at just kind of life from. So jumping into it, the first kind of thing that we want to talk about is a little bit about frameworks and paradigms and what is that. And so the easiest way I can explain like what is a framework is think of a house. So the framework would be, or let's start with a paradigm and then I'll go to the house. So a paradigm, still using the house example, a paradigm, the easiest way to explain it is, let's say you're at the front of your house and you're looking out the front of the window. Now outside the front of the window, you maybe see a tree, you maybe see a road, maybe see your neighbors, you maybe see a dog. Um, Now you go to the back of your house and you look out the back window and you see a fence, you see a blue sky, or you see it's cloudy and you see grass. So strictly what a paradigm is if you're looking out the back window and you see that it's cloudy and that there's grass and that there's a fence, outside of that, there's there's nothing else. So it's like in that paradigm, looking at the window, it's cloudy, and there's grass and it looks kind of green, but it's kind of gloomy. But when you look out front, and this is very common in Colorado, you can go look at one side of your house that it's different than the other. Then you're looking out front and it's sunny and you see people are outside. So in the front of the window, people exist, animals exist, sun exists. So it's like purely those things exist in that one window. And now what a framework is the totality of all of those windows in the home. So you're combining all of those little windows, for example, into a house, and that's essentially your frame or framework or frame of reference, whatever you want to call it. So when we talk about paradigms, we mean like we're looking at this through a specific lens. So like I'm looking at this through maybe my blue light blocking lens, or I'm looking at this through my front window lens or my back window lens, or strictly from a business sense lens, or an emotion sense lens, or whatever. And so tying that into even that practical tool, a pick that little tip, its own and feeling okay. That's it. There was no real encompassing of other things. It was just like, how am I feeling? I'm going to take these things I know that work for me in this realm to focus on this one instance, which is this. So, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes
And
sense.
so the framework that we're going to talk about is like what is included in that? What are the paradigms in that? And what's all that information in there? And so if you understand that and just keep in mind the like frame of reference is like totality, paradigm is maybe like small little thing. That will help you understand a lot of different things. And by that, I mean, you can totally understand where someone is teaching you from. So for example, like when you're looking at other mentors, like say you have these Grant Cardone kind of people, they're coming at it from their own frame of reference. So their whole totality, which is in the frame of reference, is just everything you've experienced or learned, really. That's all that's really in there. So why do we look up to these people? Oh, because they have things that are within our frame of reference that we define as successful. And so now we should listen to their frame of reference because their frame of reference got them this. That's like a mutual thing between our two frames. So like boom, boom, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you understand that, you can start looking at how other people are teaching you. Like, oh, or we're sharing the experiences we've had based on just all personal experience and the way we've comprehended it, and they're sharing this with you. And now, is this the only way? No, I will 100% say that. Well, do I think that it's pretty good way? Yeah, hell yeah, I believe our way is a really good way, and I think people should listen to it. But I understand it's not the only way, and that it's not the end all be all. But some of the information we're just going to share is just kind of the understanding of that and how to understand things around you. And when you can do that, then you can start expanding your frame. So the goal of a frame of reference is think of it as like the universe. It's always expanding. So it's just keep growing and growing. And every time you add a new experience or you learn something new or you watch a new video or whatever, you add new information and are expanding your frame of reference of knowledge. Now, what are paradigms in all of that? Paradigms are essentially sub understandings you've created around a topic. Now, this is where it'll get really gets kind of hairy jumping into all this, but we'll talk a little bit just about this, and then we'll leave the other stuff for next week. But so a paradigm is like, let's say, let's use you, Eric, as an example. Let's say in real estate, you jump into real estate, you see that there's unlimited potential. So you're like, boom, unlimited potential, I can get some of that, you know. You get in it, you start having some negative experiences. Maybe some deals are falling through, maybe you're struggling like talking to agents or whatever it is you're going through. So you start building this paradigm that real estate equals bad. And now this is kind of like a basic human function where we take all this information that we've just gathered and we've created a assumption of it all. Because do you remember every single detail you've ever gone through in every single real estate transaction? Probably not. And so this is just one example. So you've taken all this information and you've summed up that real estate is this, and in real estate, I am this. Now that's kind of muddy and that makes things really complicated. Now this is just a survival thing. It's here for our benefit. However, too many bad things add up. We start creating this subconscious association with ourselves that we aren't good at this thing. So then eventually we're like, fuck this. I don't want to do this. This is stupid. Maybe it's not for me, blah, blah, blah. And we talk ourselves out of the thing that we just talked ourselves into, off of a very, very limited data pool. So the goal and the purpose of expanding your frame of reference is you're now incorporating information that might challenge the paradigm you've created around a certain subtopic, in this case, real estate. So when we're learning something that goes against it, the first thing we're going to want to do is reject the information that attacks this. Why? Because in our survivalistic needs of human beings, we are no longer experiencing lions and tigers and bears in our environments. Our only attack is on ourselves, honestly. Paradigms, maybe ego, you can call it. I mean, I think I call it ego, but ego is formed around the paradigms we've created around different sub things. So like real estate, relationships, money, family, friendships, etc., etc. Yeah, political beliefs, the whole shebang. Yeah. And so like kind of leaving this bigger spectrum here, the purpose of expanding your frame is to get information to go against your paradigms. You ultimately want to shatter your paradigms, because if you understand that if you have a paradigm and it's very specific around something, you're not objective. And if you think about what is the purpose of being objective, the purpose, it's very maybe people say logical, but it's very like neutral. You're not influenced by emotions or any other outside thing. You're just very objective about a situation. You're like, this is the fact at hand. It is what it is. Here's what we have in front of us, and that's it. Like being objective, it's like how many times do you think, had you calmed down, how that could have helped something you're like struggling with, whether that was an argument with a family member or argument with a significant other, or like an argument with an agent or whatever. Like, could you imagine if you removed yourself, these paradigms, the ego you've built around your understanding of who you are in relation to these paradigms, then you can get out of your own way in a sense to allow yourself to say, oh, I'm okay. Like this person saying this, it goes against my paradigm here, but that's okay. Doesn't mean like I'm wrong or I'm a piece of shit or whatever. It just means this is new information. I haven't heard it before, maybe, or and I'm just gonna listen to it, and then I'll decide if that's for me or not. And so this is where I just kind of jumped into a lot of different things we could talk about for hours on each individual, but that kind of in terms of the foundation series building off of is that understanding of how all of that ties together and how you can use that information you have to way free yourself. And by that I mean remove the mental lion and tiger and bear that's attacking you. So hopefully that didn't fry your noggin a little bit, Eric.
No, it definitely fried my internet though.
Too much truth being spit.
I know, like if the FBI is watching, dude, they're like, nope, we're not going to allow him to speak at all.
The internet can't handle the truth, man. The internet can't handle the truth.
No, but yeah, you touched on some very good topics, Dylan, with regards to like the framework, the ego, and there's many ways we could carry on with this conversation. But the best way that I think we should still touch on is that framework, because like we should be able to explain some sort of experiences that your parents might have had one sort of belief, and you have, from the understanding of your influence, the circle of who you're influenced by, created or challenged that belief to look at a perspective through a different set of lens, you know?
Yeah.
Like for instance, now this is where we I don't know if we should talk about this, because I kind of want to stay neutral, but at the same time I don't, about religion. You know, people have multiple ways of how they view religion. It could be, you know, Scientology, it can be atheism, it could be you name it, etc. You know, Christianity, Catholic. They all have different meanings with regards to how the right way compared to the wrong way, right? And I think we've had multiple conversations with revolving around this topic as well. But really, if you look at it from the outer scope, they're all right. You know, they're just very ego-headed to look at one another, that they're very fucking similar. But feel free to chime in on this conversation, because I just feel that that's a good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think what you're touching on is the whole understanding that each one of these, even a religion, is its own framework. It's its own frame of reference. It's its own paradigm that someone's built. And when I think what you're saying when you say they're all the same is that they're all right, which when you say that, you mean they're right for the people that abide by it. And so it's like,
right.
That's where you're kind of getting into the whole, like, there's no right or wrong, you know, like, and this is definitely, like, I've grown my thought around this a lot, and it's going to be kind of muddy at first, but one thing I find interesting is that in a lot of different religions is they all reference Jesus.
Mhm.
Buddhism, everyone recognizes Jesus for whatever reason, and so might be a little bizarre. Maybe, there's some truth to the guy, so who knows, for sure. But like, a lot of religions mention it. Now they mention him in different ways, or hey, or this is the experience I had in this, or this is how we experience Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, when they talk about what their God or whatever, it's totally theirs. And so when people are experiencing or God, or um, the universe, or like Mother Earth or whatever, it's totally for that person. So I agree that I don't think there's a right or wrong way. It's the right way for you, like as an
Mm.
individual, like what is right for you. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. It's that, yes, there's a lot of validity to all of these, and you can look back and you can go through the framework and you can totally understand it, and it makes a lot of sense. But if like, maybe this one makes a little bit more sense to you and this one doesn't, and so it's like, but this one over here makes sense to this other person but not to you. Now, is yours better than theirs? No, absolutely not. They're both perfect for the individual.
Right.
So maybe something that person does you don't like, which is where I think there tends to be arguments around religion of, when you say ego involved, like people start making it like, oh, well, because you don't do these things, like my understanding of maybe say Christianity is this and yours is this, and if you don't abide by this, are you really following Jesus, or like being true to your source or your God or whatever you want to call it? And so, like, that's this is definitely an interesting topic.
It
But
will. And I,
um
what the fuck?
go
You're
ahead.
good. You're
No,
good.
you're
No,
good,
you're
you're
good.
good.
Okay. No, so yeah, you're very, it's true with regards to that. And that's where people begin to challenge each other, because just they're so limited. This one is looking in the eyes or the perspective of Christianity. This one is looking at in the eyes of, being Catholic. They're both the right thing. And like how Dylan is explaining it, they're both right. There's not a right or wrong with regards to how they view their own religion. But now, when you start touching the subjects of, okay, well, how does this look like? That's where the challenging of each other's religion is like, okay, well, mine is better than yours. What do you think it is? And so on and so forth. There's ways to get into that conversation. It's also like the viewing of weed. Weed, some people, like the older generations, view it as, no, weed is terrible for you. It's a gateway drug. You can go into meth and cocaine, and it's bullshit. But now, looking at from someone of the factual, it's perfectly fine. But I'm going off topic on that, and I think that I just wanted to make it super simple to grasp on how that kind of
Yeah.
looks like.
Well, and relate it back to the framework that we're tackling all this from. Religion is the paradigm. That paradigm is its own paradigm. So if you get some in the same paradigm, you have these subcircles. Now we've created those around the same, because experiences were different. It's all personal at the end of the day. Like, I think that's the part we forget. Like, it's all our own experience. It doesn't matter what the other person experienced. You can learn. Like, that's the point of learning, is you look at other people's experiences and be like, oh, maybe I don't want to have that experiences, or yo, that's some cool experience over there, I'd like to try that out. But really, it's like, you've had this experience, you've created this paradigm around an already limited thing, or an unlimited thing. I mean, if you talk about God and the universe or whatever, and the all, like, it's the all, it's all encompassing. So that's another topic. But you have a limited paradigm around something and this person has a limited paradigm, you're going to clash naturally, because you're going to think that your experiences outweigh this person's experience, because maybe your experience, you felt love in a whole new way you've never felt it, and this person's experience, they felt wholeness, but they didn't feel the love. So there's like this middle ground of this person has an experience love, this person has an experience wholeness. And so you're both right in terms of you could learn from each other, but you think that because this person didn't experience this, that they're stupid and their way of doing what they did is wrong, which just isn't true. And I think that's like the easiest way I can explain our framework is just that, understanding that, and what is the implication implications of that. Gosh, I can't speak. What is the implications of that? Because it's like, if you understand all the paradigm, the frame of references, what you do. We already talked about it. It allows you to be objective, but understanding of someone's situation and ultimately be empathetic, because maybe that person, just like in this example, this person didn't experience that, so they don't know. So it's like a puppy shitting on the floor. Puppy doesn't know it's doing anything wrong. It just knows it has to shit. So it shat on the floor. Can you get mad at the puppy? Sure. Should you? Probably not, because the puppy really doesn't know any better. So it's the same thing. This person doesn't know. They haven't had this experience of love. This person hasn't. And this person hasn't had the experience of wholeness. This person hasn't had the experience of love. So can you get mad at them? Sure, you could. Why not? I mean, fuck it. I mean, we've created an ego. In our mind, it makes sense, but is it really right?
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And so it's like, that's kind of the frame, like that's where we're coming from with all of this, is understanding the underlying principles. And this is just kind of understanding human nature, because like the ego is there for a reason. I mean, we're survivalistic by, like, just our whole being are survivalistic. Like our whole body is set up in a way to help us survive. Like, I mean, that's why we have fight or flight response, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll go into that another time and how that plays a role. But ultimately, like like those paradigms and all that, like all of it is necessary. But if you understand what's going on and its purpose there, you can then train yourself out of that, out of those reactions, be more objective, be more, I guess, intentional, be more understanding, be more empathetic towards others, and then ultimately kind of free yourself from the negative thoughts in your head or whatever is going on. Similar to how I started this podcast, where I really didn't want to do this. And I honestly was going to try to talk you out of it. And then I was like, nope, I'll just sit with it. Yeah. I was like, no, I'll just sit with it. Like, I can get past it. Let's do it. And then here we are. And I just spit some pretty good knowledge at y'all, I think.
You did. And with regards to that, understanding different frameworks is challenging. It does
Totally.
not, it's not easy. It's very challenging. It the whole idea, whether it's like very political, religious, you name it, it's going to be challenging, but take it step by step from someone who is still in the understanding phase. And yeah, you're going to be allowing it to not be so judgmental towards one another, because you're going to understand like everybody has different perspectives for everything. And when someone has a different standpoint compared to yours, there's no point to really judge about that. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to learn and grow our knowledge. But I think on that note, that's, what do you think, Dylan?
I brought up a good point.
You just froze on me.
It's not easy because it's, oh gosh, am I still freezing?
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just saying, I think you brought up a good point with the whole, like, it's challenging and it makes so much sense. And now where the the transition or that jumping off point, similar to the last podcast, is you take the information and then you apply it, and you're like, okay, I understand this is what's happening now. This person's coming at it from this perspective. I'm coming at it from this perspective. Now, what's the action portion of it? The action portion is, okay, now the next step is to understand. So now I understand, I get it. And then it's to find the common ground. Because do you want to have conflict? Probably not. I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally don't like feeling negative emotions. I don't like arguing with people. I just don't think it's necessary. At times, maybe sure, but that's where you can start differentiating down the road where it is and isn't necessary. And this is all stuff we can talk about another time, because there's a lot of things we can dive into. But you allow yourself to be more objective, more understanding, more empathetic, and you ultimately allow the situation to be whatever it is without judgment. And then you're able to work through it in a manner that's more calm, that's more relaxing, that's more peaceful to you, where you, after the situation is over, you're like, that might have been difficult, but I feel more at peace with all this. I don't feel anxious, or I don't feel stressed. I don't feel whatever about it. And so I think ultimately the whole purpose of doing all of this is just to come to that conclusion. Because it's like, if you could look back, say, even on past relationships, and say, instead of thinking bad about the person, you can look back and be like, you know what? I understand what that was for. I learned XYZ things about me in relationships. I learned XYZ things about this person. I understand why it happens. I understand why I experienced it for my growth. I forgive that person. I forgive myself. And then you move on. And it's like, how liberating is that? And I can tell you it is significantly liberating. And so a lot of this information that we're talking about is at least just the way I learned it. And ultimately, maybe you can take some of the information and apply it to yourself and have your own experience and have your own understanding, and then maybe start your own podcast, and talk about it. And so, yeah, so that's kind of, that's what I'd then talk about later, what it's like, because yes, it might just seem like all challenging at first, and don't get me wrong, I still have my moments, like even at the beginning of this podcast, as mentioned, but yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
but
no, we definitely were, and I think that's a good point where we should conclude this podcast, or episode 3. There wasn't, we kind of just jumped into it, and like, this is a great episode with regards to understanding that sense of foundation on how to be able to grow from that framework, that paradigm that you're currently referencing, and just a perspective that you currently carry. I feel that this is a perfect place to end it. And then any final words, Dylan, that you'd like to include in this awesome podcast that we got going on without everything freezing? Looks like he froze again.
Single episode afterwards. No, did I really?
Hello?
I really did?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Oh, that was really sad. Okay, that was really sad. I was saying something really good. If there's anything I'd say, it's watch the Foundation series. Like, I don't care if you don't ever watch another video in the rest of your life, but if you watch the Foundation series, I promise you the information in there will be so valuable to you that you may not even, but you'll feel the impact on the way you feel.
No.
What?
Houston, we have a problem.
That's all I have to say.
Right. Well,
you know what? Just cut.
Listen,
it's good. And
yeah,
that's how we're ending it. And that's how we're ending it.
We have a problem. Oh, and on the side note, the last thought that I had, because we were talking about meditation. There was a good point where I learned. I know. Meditation. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a morning and evening on I think he has it on every single platform, but I use it off of Apple Music. That is great, and it guides you throughout that process of meditation. So that's my last and final thought, because Houston, we have a problem.
That's what we should
And
talk about next. That's what we should talk about next episode. What is meditation?
that sounds
How
like
do
a
you
plan.
use it? That's what we're talking about
That's
next.
the plan then, with better internet and hopefully the FBI not trying to shut us off. On
Yeah,
that
no
note,
shit,
we're
right?
good to go.
Talk to you all on the next one.